the Epistle of Ibn al-Qarih. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, we commence in his name, seeking success through his benediction. Praise 1.1 be to God, the originator of blessings, who is alone in being pre-eternal, who is exalted above any likeness to his creatures and above the attributes of those who have been brought into being, who bestows benefactions but is not responsible for malefactions, who is just in his acts and truthful in his words, the creator and originator of creation, who makes it last and annihilates it as he wills. His blessings be on Muhammad and his pious family and relations, with a blessing that may gratify him, bring him nearer and closer to him, and give him favor and good graces with him. I am writing, may God lengthen the life of my Lord the Venerable Sheikh and 2.1 prolong his time, may he give him lasting protection and happiness, may he make me his ransom, and may he present me before him too in truth and in reality, having been moved by good intention and firm belief, not only by way of speech and writing, without disrespect or guile, without the affectation of affection or complaisance, not as somebody said when visiting a sick friend of his, "How are you?" May God make me your ransom, merely intending to show affection and wanting to flatter, thinking that he had done a good deed for which his friend would thank him were he to get up and recuperate, and reward him were he to regain his health and recover. I am writing in a state of well-being that would be complete with being in the Sheikh's presence, and in a state of prosperity that would be in perfect order by being honored by his noble person, his blessed mind, and his countenance. God, the most noble, his names be sanctified, knows that if I had yearned to meet him, may God always support him, as a bereft mother camel yearns for her calf, or a bird with chicks for its nest, or a dove for its mate, or a gazelle for its fawn. It would have been one of those things changed by the course of nights and days, years and ages. Rather, it is the yearning of the thirsty for water, the fearful for safety, the snake-bitten for recovery, the drowning for rescue, the perturbed for quiet of mind, nay, the yearning of the Sheikh's precious soul for God's praise and glory, for I have seen how it is drawn toward these things as components are drawn toward their elements and basic principles toward their substances. Point 3 If God grants me a fullness of life that enables me to delight in seeing the Sheikh and to hold fast on to the 3 Ibn al-Qarih's hopes for a meeting with al-Maʿarrī, the Epistle of Ibn al-Qarih, rope of his affection, then I shall be like the nocturnal traveler who lays down his staff, praises for his nightly journey, and whose heart and mind are gladdened and delighted. He is like someone untouched by evil, not betrayed by an enemy, not worn away by setting out at night and returning in the morning. Perhaps God will grant me this, today or tomorrow. In him is our trust. I ask God, despite the need to come closer, the distance, and the remoteness, 2.2 to let the Sheikh enjoy the excellence that has risen high upon his shoulders and which has conquered east and west. For if one traverses his raging sea of knowledge and considers the brilliance of his radiant full moon, one's pen is apt to falter in one's fingers and one's natural talent will fail to impress itself 5 on one's epistles, unless one hands to him the keys or asks him to bestow one of the keys of his knowledge, so that one could be affiliated to him, in his debt, as someone who has come down to his mountain path, one of his associates and his party, a spark of his fire, a sliver of his gold dinar, a drop of his ocean, a puddle of his flood. Alas, how remote! A span is too short for a journey. 6 Applying coal to the eyes is not like having coal-black eyes. 7 They were created generous, not feigning to be generous. The generous is he who does not feign generosity. 8 Especially since the characteristics of the soul cleave to it like colors to bodies, white cannot turn black, nor black white. Nor can a brave man be cowardly, or a coward brave. Abu Bakr al-Arzam says, the coward among men flees, abandoning his nearest and dearest. 9 While the brave among men will defend those unrelated to him. A munificent man's favor will be granted to his enemy, while the favor of a miser will be denied to his relatives. He who does not refrain from brutishness to those who love him will refrain from brutishness toward those who assail him. How could a fog compare with a downpour from the clouds? How could the 2.3 crow swoop like the eagle? How to compare oneself to the Sheikh, whose name, when mentioned in the sessions of recollection, has become a call to 5 The Epistle of Ibn al-Qarih, prayer, a tongue to express the landmarks of gratitude, 10 He who rejects the evidence of the eyes, who treats both mankind and jinn haughtily, and who clings to calumny and falsehood obstinately is like someone who in his insolence vies with the hardness of the stone in his obdurateness, who seeks to rival the beauty of the moon with his ugliness, who raves and babbles, who takes in hand and hamstrings at point 11 He is like someone afflicted with fever who is delirious and who looks jaundiced 12 Like someone who proclaims his own shortcomings among the dwellers of the desert and the towns. He is, and this is unquestionable, like the person the poet meant 13 Like one that butts a rock, one day, hoping to cleave it, but does not harm it, and the ibex only hurts his horns. It is transmitted that the messenger of God bless and preserve him and increase him in honor with him said, God curse him who speaks with two tongues, God curse every liar, God curse every slanderer. I reached the periphery of Aleppo, may God protect and guard it after 2.4 Having been smitten in its outskirts with catastrophe, calamity and casualty, nay, I was stricken with the rarest misfortunes and a crushing disaster. When I entered the town, not yet having a fixed abode, I did not recognize it, for I could not find any acquaintance or neighbor. Then I recited to it, weeping, when, after long avoidance, I pay a visit to a land, I miss a loved one, though the place is still the same. Abu al-Qarih al-Maʿarrī ibn Sa'd al-Faqqas was in love with his cousin in Najd who was called Washiyah. A man from Syria took her as his wife to his country. He was grieved and afflicted by her being far away and by being separated from her. In a poem he said, since Washiyah has left Najd, no doctor can cure your eyes of what they weep for. He saw a glance from her and he could not hold back his tears. Her clothes, with underneath a rising sand dune, 14 The winds that blow from Syria were once 15 disliked, but now those same winds have turned sweet. What I had gained is gone with the wind, as happened to Abu al-Qarih with Washiyah. 7 The Epistle of Ibn al-Qarih and then. 16 Then the Sheikah's name was mentioned, may God always support him. 2.5 Without any cause or occasion requiring it, and someone said, the Sheikh knows more about syntax than Sibawi and more about lexicography and metrics than al-Khalil. I replied, as the assembly gave ear, I have heard that he, may God always support him, belittles what is great in him, and even minimizes what is little in him. Thus his belittling becomes a form of aggrandizement and his deprecation becomes an augmentation. I have witnessed the same thing in some other scholars I have met personally. May God have mercy upon them all, and may he make the Sheikh the inheritor of their longest, most flourishing, and most prosperous lifetime, but there is no need for this. The flowers have blossomed, the light is bright, and dawn is shining for those with sight. Abu al-Faraj al-Zaraji, State Secretary at the Court of Nar al-Dawla, May 2.6.1 God always protect him, wrote a letter to me, which he gave me, and another letter to the Sheikh, may God always support him, which he entrusted to me, asking me to deliver it to the venerable Sheikh, as speech, rather than as a dispatch, and quickly convey it and not to delay it. But my traveling companion robbed me of one of my saddlebags, which had the letter in it, so I wrote this letter instead, complaining of my state of affairs and explaining my needs, to inform the Sheikh of all my foibles and failings and of my experiences, during my travels, with all the petty people who pretend to have knowledge and erudition. True erudition is that of the soul, not that of study, but they are devoid of both. They commit errors when they read or write. 17 But when I point them out, they gang up against me and impute the errors to me. I met Abu al-Faraj al-Zaraji in Amid. He had a library that he showed 2.6.2 me. I told him, these books of yours are Jewish and devoid of the Sharia of the true religion. He showed his annoyance and disapproval of this remark. So I said to him, you are talking to an experienced man, someone like me does not talk rubbish about things he does not know about. Verify and you will be certain. He and his son began to read, and he said, first-hand knowledge has belittled reported knowledge. He wrote me a letter, eulogizing me, for such is his good nature and unblemished character. 18 Criticism of heresy and heretics. The Epistle of Ibn al-Qarih 2.7.1 al-Mutanabbi 19 says, I blame the Manikins of these our times. Using the diminutive, manikin of man, out of deprecation and not veneration, and by making them few and not many, thus spitting out his words like someone with a disease of the chest 20 by which his hidden mind was expressed. This is possible in the figurative language of poetry, and one is not forbidden to say such things in verse or prose, but he said it inappropriately and addressed it to people who did not deserve it. A time in which he has had the good fortune to meet Sayf al-Dawla does not deserve to have its people blamed. How could it, when he himself said, I go to his fief in his clothes on his steed from his house with his sword? He should have considered that these people are under Sayf al-Dawla's protection, they were affiliated to him and his protégés. And one should not complain to a reasonless, dumb object about persons possessing reason and speech, for time is no more than the movements of the celestial sphere unless he is one of those who believe that these spheres possess reason and have knowledge and understanding, aware of the effect of their actions, with intentions and volitions, and who by their belief are induced to bring sacrifices and burnt offerings to them. In that case he would contradict his own words, perish the religion of the worshippers of stars and those who claim that these have reason. Or he would be as God the Exalted says in his noble book 21, wavering between this, not to these, not to those, he all but answers to this description. In a book on which they collaborated, the people of Baghdad and Cairo 2.7.2 claim that nothing like it was ever written on the subject, on account of its slim size and its great learning. Al-Qarih 2.2 and Ibn Abil Azhar 23 tell how al-Mutanabbi was taken from prison in Baghdad, to the court of Abu el-Hasan al-Ibn Sa with Makran, the vizier, God have mercy upon him. Point 24. The latter asked, Are you Ahmad, the would-be prophet, al-Mutanabbi? Al-Mutanabbi replied, I am Ahmad the prophet, al-Nabi. 25. He bared his stomach. And 11. The Epistle of Ibn al-Qarih showed him a when. Point 26. This, he said, is the stamp of my prophethood and the sign of my mission. The vizier gave orders that his shoe be removed and his head be slapped with it 50 times. Then he sent him back to his prison. Al-Mutanabbi also said, addressing Sayf al-Dawla, you are angry with him who has obtained your support, so that annoyance and gifts 27 torment him. Point 28. He lies, by God. He had been badgering him about these acts of generosity and rubbing him up about them, jealously wanting them to come only from him and through him. But this does not detract from the polish of his poetry or the splendor of its fine style. But I am furious about those heretics 29 and apostates 30 who make fun of 3.1 religion and wish to instill doubts and skepticism among the Muslims, those who take delight in detracting from the prophethood of the prophets, God's blessings be on them all, and who are so satisfied with their sophistication and invention, the conceitedness of a singer and the sophistication of a heretic. 31. Al-Maḥrī had Bashshar killed for heresy. When the latter attracted notoriety for this and began to be afraid, he defended himself by saying, Ibn Nihaya 32. My head is heavy for me, and carrying 2 heads would be a heavy load. Let others call for worshipping 2 lords, one is enough to keep me busy. Al-Maḥrī also summoned Li ibn Abd al-Qudus. He called for the execu 3.2 Shinmat and the executioner. Li asked, Why are you sentencing me to death? The Caliph replied, Because you said, Many a secret I have hidden, as if I were dumb, or my tongue were tied. If I had exposed my religion to the people, the rest of my meals would be taken in prison. 13. The Epistle of Ibn al-Qarih. Enemy of God, an enemy of yourself. A fine reputation veils scandalous deeds, but you'll find no veil that covers good deeds. 33. Then Li said, I was a heretic, but I have repented and renounced heresy. But al-Maḥrī said, How can that be? You yourself said, An old man will not abandon his habits until he is buried in the earth of his grave. Though he may mend his ways, he will return to his error, just as a someone chronically ill will relapse. The executioner struck before he knew what was happening,